Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. And has it not been an absolutely beautiful spring here in Utah? This April, oh my goodness, this has been such a beautiful month. And I'm telling you, I am loving so much all of the crab apples, both pink and white, and all of the red bud trees in bloom right now. And oh my gosh, there's just so many beautiful trees in bloom and flowers in bloom. My iris just poked out of the ground for the first time this year, and I'm so excited to see those blooms. It's just the start of a beautiful season. And as I mentioned on last week's show, be very careful about planting times because the weather can be very tricky at this time, where it seems like the 10-day forecast is just on the up and up, and we're not going to have any cold nights that can damage some of our newly planted annuals or warm season vegetables. I'm just going to plead with you that unless you have a greenhouse or a wall of water or a hoop house or something else to protect those warm season vegetables, it is best if you do not put them in the ground just yet. Let's wait around Mother's Day and really look at the forecast around then, because again, even last year we had a frost, I believe it was sometime in late May. So it was really a stunner and put a lot of us up into shock. And that's a month from now, if you can think of it that way. So we just have to be careful. And I would hate to have you plant your garden and your vegetables or your beautiful annuals and have a huge disappointment. So anyway, that's my little tip of the day. But what it is the perfect time for is to start really thinking about how to bring even more color and more texture and more beauty into our landscapes, whether you have an established landscape or you're working with something new. And today I am joined by my good friend and fellow plant buddy, Cynthia B. Now, Cynthia is the Sustainable Landscapes Expert for Slow the Flow, which is Utah's statewide water conservation campaign. She holds a bachelor's degree in landscape architecture, and she has taught, I'm not exaggerating, tens of thousands of Utahns how to landscape like we actually live here. And we had such a fun conversation. The first thing you're going to hear about is the Utah Plant Selector, and she's about to tell you all about that. We're also going to learn about resources and incentives from the state of Utah so that when you can do any improvements in your yard to make them more water-wise, and some are extremely simple, she is going to tell you how you can save money and where to go to look up what those incentives are. We're also going to talk about the landscape demonstration projects. There are some openings, I believe, in Sandy and Harriman, where if you want to apply to have your yard sort of made over by the Slow the Flow campaign and all of the experts they've brought in to create like the perfect landscape for Utah, we go over where you can go to apply and what type of yard you need and what situation your landscape and home needs to be in order to see if you can't be the one selected, honestly. How cool would that be? Now, Cynthia's been on the show in the past. I believe we have at least 2 other episodes that we've talked about before, but she is in a new position with the state of Utah, so it's fun to hear about that. And ultimately, we're 2 plant friends totally geeking out over blooms and plants, and you're going to learn a lot of ways that you can make your garden not just gorgeous, but sustainable too. So again, whether you are planning something entirely new or you're just looking for a few new ideas to refresh up your space, this episode is packed with inspiration from 2 garden geek friends and some very practical tips. So let's dive in with Cynthia right now. Well, Cynthia, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited that you're recording again.
I know. It used to be to where we would record and I'd see you across the screen, but then we became friends and I saw you more in real life. And now we're behind the screen again. So it's fun to have you here. And most important business first, I need to tell you about a shipment I got today.
Oh boy.
I got my Bare Root David Austins.
Oh.
So I'm literally sitting here like, okay, I'm going to have to soak them tonight so that I can, the tricky thing is I'm like, I need to get them in soon, but it's going to get super cold. Oh, in the next 2 days. So now I'm like, do I wait until the cold snap on Monday? I don't know.
Ugh, these are the hard decisions every gardener makes in the spring. I actually put some bare root in last weekend. It was
Yeah.
an order I placed 2 years ago, and I finally got the last of it. So,
Which ones did
yeah.
you get?
Oh, girl, I got the florist roses, chiffon, unforgettable, cappuccino.
Oh,
Yeah. And the ones that I got previously have overwintered fine because that's the thing. When you don't order from the standard companies, there's less of a guarantee. And of course, the longer you garden, the more you want to turn over the weird rocks. So, yeah,
so I
I've gotten some really fun Notting Hill and
oh,
just some really cool. I love the roses when they get the little green inflorescence in the center. Not everybody likes that. I always like the weird stuff, so I've got a bunch that will do that.
I'm with you. I like the weird stuff. Although these ones I got today aren't necessarily weird, they're just a little bit less common. So
Yeah.
I got two Munstead Wood
Oh, beautiful.
and and two Bring Me Sunshine, which is one of I think the new one from David Austin, and
Hmm.
I got one Evelyn. So anyway, I'm kind of
Uh,
excited.
I have a Jude the Obscure that I planted in 2007. It came home on an airplane with me from Heirloom Roses in Oregon. When we went on vacation, I took a suitcase, and my husband's like, "Why is there an empty suitcase?" Because, this was before they charged you all the extra money for it. And I
Right.
just laughed at him. I said, "Oh, you think that's coming home empty?"
That's so amazing. That is so funny. That reminds me when a couple years ago, and I do think I told this story on this show, but many, many, many episodes ago, we went up to Montana in our RV to visit our son. And of course, they have this beautiful nursery in Great Falls called 40 Nursery. And
Mm.
they had a sexy Rexy Floribunda rose that was just, I had to have. And then I was realizing, well, I don't want to have one, I need to have three. So anyway, on our way home, our bathtub was filled with three sexy Rexy Floribunda.
There you go.
The shower
I
in the
know
motorhome.
my husband's just ashamed to travel with me because he knows I'm going to be bringing stuff through TSA. I've learned if you rinse the soil off the roots, it goes through a little easier. Take them in a plastic bag. That's what I learned.
Totally, totally. On our last trip in January to St. Thomas, they had this unbelievable, it was just a philodendron, right? But it was like variegated with some yellow and whatnot. And if it wasn't me for a full day trying to plot how I could get that home, and I actually thought it'd be a problem. Like I was seriously considering, well, not breaking the law, but like I really wanted to I didn't want to get away with something, but I still wanted to find a way. And sure
Yes.
enough, I started to ask
A
around.
legal
They're
way.
like, people do this all the time. You totally can do it. And so when I got to the airport, I even declared it. And I said, here it is. It's just this teeny little start. And they're like, oh, no problem. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. You never know. Now, if you're flying into California, all bets are off. But if you don't, then, there's options. But
yeah.
no, some people collect souvenirs, and I just love to bring, it doesn't even have to be an unusual plant. I just love to bring a plant when I go on a vacation. I have some Ansonia in the yard, and every time I look at it, I think of the trip my daughter and I took to Minneapolis,
Oh,
so it
I
just
love that.
becomes my own little fun travel mementos that live in my yard.
I love that. And I think that's one of the special things is the garden is like a memento of our life, right?
That's right.
What would you like to tell our listeners? What should we jump into today?
This is so exciting. We are doing the final going through bugs. In fact, I was just doing that before this call, trying to find the last of the bugs, at least the obvious ones. Software is always buggy, but the Utah Plant Selector is finally launching 3 years into development.
Oh,
And, I'm sure it's very simple. And I just, people are like, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of criticism because it's so simple. And the whole point is, do you know how hard it was to make it that simple?
oh,
Um, it's a really fun tool. We're launching it through Slow the Flow, which is the statewide water conservation campaign. And since last I was on your show, I have changed jobs, and now I have a statewide service area. So I get to teach everybody now, not just Salt Lake County, and that makes me super happy. And I pair up with all the same people that I've worked with before. I'm in a different role with a different organization, but I get to do even more things. And that was the biggest draw for me is I don't have to worry about if people got water today. I get to worry just about what drives water conservation. And that is my entire job now. And so I'm really, really excited about it. And so it gave us an opportunity to create a Utah instance of the plant selector tool. And it kind of just came as a challenge of, people just get so overwhelmed. I've been in the yards, like just this last week, I was up in Olympus Cove in a lady's yard that has done a beautiful front yard localscape. She took the classes, she learned how to do it. She's done an awesome job on it. And she even has a background in botany. And and that's probably partly the challenge, because when you know a lot of plants, you can't choose. But anyway, she's been going circles for 2 years trying to figure out exactly how to plant it. And just, the more we research, the more paralyzed we become. I'm not saying we shouldn't research, but just for a lot of us, it actually makes us less capable of choosing. I know, even in my own yard, everyone struggles with their own yard. When I would design for clients, I could always just put it on the next one if I didn't get it in that person's yard, right? But in your own yard, you just go in circles, because I got one spot and I got 7 things it needs to be.
It's so
But
true.
really the key to making a designer outcome, like we pick out our plants onesie twosie. We see a cool thing, we buy it. We see a cool thing, we buy it. Maybe we had someone design it and we have a list from them, and we think that we are stuck with only buying what's on the list because it's on the darn list and I paid for that plan. So I'm just going to tell you, as someone that designs, just anybody that has a real plan, just know, no matter how good, like especially if your designer was good, actually, there's at least 7 or 8 different things that any one of those plants that's on your plan could be substituted with, and it would be perfectly fine. We just have to choose. And when I
Yes.
used to design for people, I would go in circles far more than was profitable, deciding between 2 similar red leaf shrubs, which one should it be?
Uh-huh.
And so we really paralyze ourselves. So the goal here was to help solve that problem for people. And that was the piece that wasn't really as effectively, because there's lots of resources where if you want to know comprehensively what to do, if you're the person that loves to dig in and make spreadsheets and all of that, then awesome. There are already great resources that are available. Both Water Resources has a really awesome plant list that's done by zip code through the whole state, and Conservation Garden Park has their online plant database. So if you're a person that wants to dig through databases, we have awesome local databases already in existence. My goal was to serve those that are, what is the least I have to know to solve the problem? I know what I like when I see it. And then they'll want someone like me to build in all the detail. So that's what the plant selector does. So you don't have to think about all the different things. You go into the tool, you put in your zip code, and it pops you up a bunch of pre-designed designer combos.
Oh,
And then you can click on any of the combos that you like. Are you looking at it? UtahPlantSelector.com, or you can get to
I
it through
should.
Slow the Flow, slowtheflow.org. But yeah, as you go through and you can just see it. So if you see a combo, oh, there's a spring one that I like, you click it, then the real fun starts, because that's where you can start mixing and matching. And so our goal here, I call it guided choice. I find that people are able to be most effective, to still show their true selves and what their style looks like, if you can help guide that a little bit. And so with the plant selector tool, there are 3 traits that we're looking for when we're making these combinations. And that's bloom, texture, and foliage. And most people just look for bloom. And so no matter how often you try to put those different blooms in, you're always going to have the bulk of the visuals, a medium green leaf. And that creates a green jungle effect. And so what makes each plant look good is how it contrasts with its neighbor. And we contrast through texture, which is leaf shape. So that can be fuzzy leaves, or like grass-like strappy leaves, or tiny leaves, or huge leaves, and also foliage color. So the gray leaves, golden, burgundy, all the different things. And when you pair those together, that bloom, texture, foliage together, that's where you really get the powerful partners. And because they look distinctive against each other, even when you pack a lot of plants in, as you and I are known to do,
Yes.
um, they still stand out against each other. And so you get this organized beauty rather than a green jungle looking mess with the exact same number of plants. And that's just something that, we're not typically trained to look for, but that foliage is going to give us contrast all season, even as the blooms come and go. Now, that said, to even be in the plant selector isn't about all the plants that you could possibly have. That's what the database is for. The plant selector is taking it down to lowest common denominator. So in order to even be in the tool, first, it has to be a good plant for Utah. So just know that there's nothing in there that isn't a workable plant for our area. That's baseline.
Yep.
But it also has to, on that bloom category, it has to bloom for a minimum of 6 weeks, and generally longer. So our goal here is to get the foundational framework plants that you build a yard around to be those combinations. And then if 40 to 60% of your plants are those combinations, you can fill in with whatever you want and you won't screw up the design.
Wow.
So you have these long workhorse plants that's ensuring that, so if you do your all season, and then you have your early spring, summer, fall, you can do, everyone can break that down differently. It depends on how much space you have in your yard. Um, but that's generally the idea. And as long as you do all of that, then you end up with, with that really interesting nonstop bloom. And what's so fun is there's about 80 total plants in the tool. And yet we're all going to mix and match differently. So there's going to be like, if let's say everyone in a neighborhood did this, if we buy like a plan through an existing system, we're all installing the same plan. We all have the same look. In this case, what it does is it allows you to mix and match. So technically, we still have the same number of plants available, but we're all mixing and matching differently. So you'll see those same plants repeated in neighborhoods that gives us that continuity, but
Uh-huh.
everybody still has their own look and their own style that's expressed. And so it's just kind of that. And so on the front end, we're making it easier for homeowners to choose. And jokingly, we call it Tinder for plants because you get to swipe right. Um, so yeah, you can find yourself a hot date on there within the plant world. But so that's just kind of the idea of it. We want to make it easier for people. And then on the front end, it's solving problems for people. But what you won't see, and we'll tell this audience, because if you're listening to this podcast, you'll care about this piece. So my job is to help with the landscape transition that Utah has to make. And I'm one of many people that do that, but now I'm taking kind of a lead role in that through Slow the Flow. And if you look statewide, we have several 100 million square feet of lawn that need to convert to water-wise something else. And that doesn't mean all lawn. We'll still have some lawn in most parts of the state, other than Washington County, which is going to probably have to move to a no lawn scenario sooner rather than later. But for the rest of the state, we can still have some lawn. But that hundreds of millions of square feet of lawn has to evaporate at some point and be replaced with other things. And not all of it will be plants, but a lot of it will. So I'm looking at the plant supply chain and I'm saying there is no way we are even remotely prepared for what is coming. And so how can we figure that out so that the benefit of all of this change is benefiting our Utah economy rather than being shipped off to other states? And so the beauty of it is with the tool is as you put your zip code in and as people peruse through different plants, it really helps us know what the interest levels are with different plants, and so that we're able to provide that to growers. So the only personal data we're taking is your zip code.
Yeah.
But we're providing information to growers, and so that they can make a better estimate of what needs to be available. And so we can grow our own supply chain. Our nurseries can plan better so that no one's frustrated, if you can't. So with the tool, we start with the plants that are already in the supply chain that are good plants. And we have some natives in there. We don't have as many natives as I will have over time. But the point of the tool is it helps us move the supply chain where it needs to go, using data as that foundation. And so, it's just, it's a chicken and egg thing a little bit too. So I've got to get people using the tool in order to have the tool be something we can use to influence the supply chain. And
Totally.
so I would definitely encourage all of your listeners to access it. It's not an app right now, and that's a potential for the future. But we all have a lot of apps on our phone we don't often use. And so we've mostly just kept it as an online tool. You can access it on your phone and work it on your phone just fine. It's just not a downloadable app, but you can reach it, utahplantselector.com, or you can always get to it through Slow the Flow. So
Yeah, I see it right here on the homepage where you can just click into the plant selector tool. Now, when you say the data, are you talking about, for example, when the user is kind of filtering through and deciding which plants they like, you're able to kind of determine the views of what people are
I mean,
looking
we
at
could
most,
get
or-
that granular. I think for the most part, it's going to be if they put it on a list,
Ah, got
because
it.
the list
Okay.
is where you make the commitment, right? You're just perusing when you're looking, and we
Okay.
all want to we all want to window shop.
Oh,
But it's
absolutely.
once you put it on a list. Now, here's part of what's fun too. So one of the things that we're working with is the idea that, so we'll be working with local nurseries. You'll see the Plants Tool signage at local nurseries. I'm still in the process of getting things printed. So what I'm hoping to do is have some Garanimal style tags. Do you remember Garanimals kids clothes?
Totally.
Totally inspired this whole thing. Okay. My childhood, that dates me, but and Garanimals was just a style of kids' clothes where instead of trying to teach them all the rules of matching clothes, they just said hippos go with hippos, alligators go with alligators, match an alligator shirt to an alligator pant. So we're going to try to do that same thing with local nurseries. So the tool will do that digitally, but also within the nursery, we'll have different stickers and things that basically let you connect. And so you can walk the nursery and go, oh, I've got a bloom. I've got a summer bloom. I need to find a foliage and a texture to go with it. And then I have a combo. And then the key with these combos is once you have that, you repeat it at least 3 times around the yard. So you kind of triangulate it, because when something's in bloom, your eye follows what's in bloom. And so it wants to see it around if you want the eye to flow around the landscape, then you just do that, repeat 3 times. And I can explain all the fancy design reasons these things work, or I can literally just say, make the 5 combos, get them in the yard 3 times minimum, and away you go. So take everything you've learned in 30 years and summarize it in 1 sentence.
Wow.
It's taken 3 years to get it to summarize.
I love this, because even as experienced as we are, the more you know, the more difficult it is to make a choice. And I am right in the middle of everything you're talking about with my side yard, which you've seen and know very well.
Mm-hmm.
And getting down to now we have our, planting areas. It's like, okay, I totally agree that if you just fill it with a bunch of blooms, it can end up looking like a Crayola box. But when you actually have those contrasts and the different shapes, but then it's repeated, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It elongates everything. It makes it look more pleasing to the eye, and it extends. I mean, all the design principles there are. I mean, this is just such a no-brainer. And
yes, and the goal is to build that in to just happen, so you don't have to think about all those little details. We thought about those. The experts that developed it thought about those details for you, and we built them in to happen automatically. You just literally, so we took it from I've got to make a spreadsheet and try to balance my spreadsheet down to I like purple. I mean, that's the goal.
I bet.
And the outcomes are actually going to be fairly similar, but with just a lot less stress. Now, if you're, like I said, if you're the person that loves to go over that, and all of us do, hey, go for it. More detail is great, but not everybody's in that place and they aren't ready. Actually, Nate over at Schmidt's Greenhouse summed it up really great for me. He goes, so are you kind of like solving for like the Walmart Plus crowd? And I'm like, I'm kind of the Walmart Plus crowd myself, I think, because I have a hard time making a decision.
Yeah, totally.
So, and I do the onesie twosie. Okay, so yeah, and that's where it comes in. So 40 to 60% of your plants should be combinations. It just depends on how much space you have to fill, but roughly of what you're planting. And you can go back with existing plants and pair them up. So maybe I go back and I say, oh, I've got a red leaf barberry. That's a foliage. I just need to pair it with a bloom and a texture, and I have made something I already had into a combo, right? Or you can we have what we call wild cards. So the rest of your plants are wild cards, and that is your permission. Go impulse buy, grab something just because it was blue. Those remembrance things that we talked about, whether it's from a vacation or a beloved family member or a namesake. A lot of these plants have people names, and then we're like, I got to have the Carol Iris, remember Carol or whatever. Any of that is a good enough reason. As long as it's a Utah Happy plant, then you can just fill in with those wild cards. And the other reason that the combos are such a helpful way to do it, when I used to design for clients, I would have a plan. I'd give them a plan, and it would have every single, down to the absolute detail, like I said, long past what was profitable, plant to put in their yard. And then they would look at the plan, and they would look at their yard. And I've seen, your yard's large, so this would be doubly true for you. And just feel so overwhelmed by how to get all those little tiny plants out into the yard laid out as the plan showed.
Yeah.
And so the way we're doing it with this, one of the coolest things about the plant selector is once you get into that mix and match page, so you go in, you pick a combo you like, and then that's where you can change it up and make adjustments to it. But as you scroll down to the bottom there, you'll see there, every time you change the plant, the spacing required for that combo will change and update with the plant that you've chosen.
Unreal.
So generally speaking, you're working in a 3 to 4 foot square area. All of us can think 3 plants, 3 by 3, right?
Yeah.
And, now some plants are larger than others. So one of the things, and this isn't in the tool, because again, when you want it to be super simple, you have to give up perfection. So just so you know, the way I do it is with the combo, with the 3 different plants, I try to make them roughly take about the same amount of area. So if I have something that's going to spread to 2 feet, and then I'm pairing it with something that's going to spread to 1 feet, I might add, I might do 2 or 3 of something to make it visually the same weight. Again, that's something people that listen to a podcast like this might care about. It's not something that's in the basic tool. So It's a starting point.
Yeah.
And you can make that combo. It doesn't have to be one, two, three plants. You could be three, three, and three, and make a bigger massing depending on the area. And so in a yard like yours, where you have much more space, you're going to want to make each of those combos more than just three plants. If I'm in a small yard, I'm going to do the three. If I'm in a larger yard, I'm going to make my combos a little bit more massing because I have the area to cover to do it. And then I also do that based on how far away I'm looking at it. So if I'm looking
Yeah.
at something up close, I can be more detailed. If I'm seeing it from further away, it needs to read larger. So one of the most exciting parts about the Plants tool is that we've got kind of this option to pre-order. So again, as we're seeing that ability to change the plant supply chain and upgrade and make it more predictable so that growers can comfortably grow more of the things we need to have planted here in the state. One of the ways that we're doing that is an integration with High Country Gardens. So one of the options that you have in the tool is to pre-order online. It's only open certain times of year in concert with how High Country Gardens does that. What most people might not know is that almost all of the plants that are grown for High Country Gardens are grown and shipped out of Utah. So even though High Country is a national company, it's the largest provider of water-wise plants in the country, those plants are grown and shipped out of Utah. So you are still getting plants acclimated to our area, but you can get those in advance. So I think this is a really great option for people that are going to do a park strip flip
Yeah.
or a larger project. Because here's one of the things, like we just assume we're going to be able to get what we need at the nursery. And one of the challenges as we're doing like, especially park strip flipping, because the way a park strip looks good is when you have maybe, I say 7 plants. So my formula for a park strip is the all season anchor combo, and then just the bloom for each of those seasons that you'll find in the plants tool. 7 plants total. But here, and then you repeat it because as cars drive by, that rhythm is really important in that area. But, you know, that makes a regular homeowner who might have gone into the nursery and bought 2 or 3 of something of the same perennial. Now that person might need 20. And our nurseries aren't set up for that, right? And so if you're in that boat where you're going to do, you know, I got a corner lot park strip and I'm going to need 35, you know, whatever. The pre-order program is really great because you know that you can get it and it will ship at the right time. And they do a spring and a fall ship. I think the spring ship is now closed, at least the pre-order is, and we will jump in with them this fall and really promote that opportunity to get those plants. So if you were thinking of doing a project, go ahead, get started. The pre-order for fall will open in like June. And then you can do that. And then, you know, and honestly, I'm a person who needs deadlines. So I am doing a Utah Water Savers project right now in my yard. I have a June 13th deadline, and that is what is ensuring that I don't spend this, you know, next weekend doing what I really want to be doing instead of landscaping, is so that I can hit that deadline. So for me, it's also self-serving. So I'm like, I got to get people with a little skin in the game. If you know your plants are going to show up that second week of September from High Country Gardens, and that, you know, that mid-August thing you might want to do instead is going to make you go landscaping instead. Because you got
That's
to be
right.
ready when the plants come.
I couldn't
So
agree more.
I need the deadline. So that's just me, but other people are probably a little better about things like that.
No, I need the deadline as well. Absolutely. We're just so busy. Come on.
I know. But that's just to know that your plants are here. You're going to get the plants you need.
Yes.
Um, you know, Sundancer daisy is a great example. It's one of the most amazing plants for Utah. It's a native, it blooms nonstop. It's one of our best all season anchors. I want to increase the availability of that plant. Everybody that knows about it wants it. And it's just, you know, it's less predictable. And so that's something that we are aiming to change. And this tool gives us an opportunity to do that. So we're solving real problems for people swiftly and quickly and with the right kind of plants. We're still building that idea of guided choice in. So we're providing the means to solve the problem. But we're not telling you it has to be this or it has to be that. You're still making choices about how you prefer to do it and what is your look and your style. It's just within bumpers that make sure you can't fail. And then lastly, all of that is used to inform the plant supply chain so that we can scale it with the change that's happening in this state and that everything theoretically works a little bit more in concert to make us all, you know, be able to make this change that Utah's got to make. It's time for Utah to look like, you know, the most beautiful version of the place we actually live.
Oh,
And that's really the goal.
yeah. And how interesting for that data to be able to know consumer preferences are changing. Like you could look at that data over time and really understand. That's so powerful.
Well, and it goes along. I'm glad you brought that up because it goes along with data that we've just recently acquired. So, over the last year, we've been involved, Utah Waterways and the Division of Water Resources, Great Salt Lake, or the Office of the Great Salt Lake Commissioner, and the Nature Conservancy all partnered up with Envision Utah to do a study that's called the Utah Water Values Study. And part of that study looks at attitudes and what do Utahns see as beautiful? What do they feel like our landscapes should look like? It tested people from all over the state. And we did make sure to ask some questions that were similar to a study that was done in 2014, 2015, just to see what the movement has been. And it was very, very interesting. In 2014, a dominant lawn landscape was still by far the preferred landscape. And as of this study that just came out a couple of weeks ago, most Utahns, I think it was like 69% combined, found either the most preferable or preferable to have a low lawn landscape. Now, they still don't love the no lawn for the most part. Some people do, and in some parts of the state, that's more accepted than in other parts. But generally speaking, that idea of a more balanced landscape is absolutely hitting. And that's thanks in large part to the team statewide that's really pushed local scapes. I give full credit to all of the teachers. There are dozens of us across the state that are pushing that out and teaching that together. And I think that's really helped shift the perception of what should our yards even look like. And having beautiful examples matters. So for me, just getting someone to change, the biggest risk isn't that they didn't flip their park strip, is that they flipped it and failed.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that those outcomes are so beautiful that their neighbors want to copy them.
Yeah, and when you say low lawn landscape, when I actually saw the study you're talking about, and I went through it myself, scrolling through, and like, what would before I looked at the numbers, I picked the same one
Mhm.
with the low lawn landscape, but to paint a visual picture for our listeners, it just looked like a very well designed landscape, which is what
Yeah.
Localscapes really is, where you had the clear entertainment area with the pavers and the seating area where everyone's going to go sit down and have their evening chats or their weekend burgers or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it was very clear. The eye took you exactly to the different quote unquote themed areas to do X, Y, and Z, and lawn was
Mhm.
absolutely a part of it. But it wasn't this long, skinny, rectangular piece of lawn up against a vinyl fence,
Right.
which, like you said, way in the past used to be the thing, but now it's not. Now it's really, let's think about how are we going to use our yard? A lot of people don't realize that longer term, it can be less expensive to build in that fun little entertainment spot,
Right. It's
you
definitely
know?
more usable. Like everyone that makes these switches are like, I'm using my yard more. And oh, that brings up our next thing we get to chat about, the
Let's do it.
demonstration projects.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, girl. I did not broadly broadcast the application. We went through the cities. So it's funded by Salt Lake County and Larry Miller Company, Zions Bank, Rio Tinto, and then a bunch of local suppliers. So there's lots of great people that are pitching in to make this a possible thing. But we are literally giving away 4 landscape makeovers in Salt Lake County. But I issued it as a casting call. And the reason is because we're auditioning yards, basically. And so we're looking at which yards give us the opportunity to demonstrate the most common challenges that people run into so that someone will look at that and go, oh, my yard looks like that now. And then we can show what it could look like. And then the key and the reason we're doing it isn't just to go, ta-da, before, after, HGTV, whatever. We have a professional videographer that's going to capture every moment of how the change gets made. So video on how do I split an irrigation zone and how do I water mature trees with drip so that they survive? And I want to see how it is done on a regular landscape. We're going to look at the yard with existing plants and say, okay, how do I apply those concepts from the plant selector in this landscape to make it beautiful? And so that's the key is those digital resources that will help people know how do I even begin? The overwhelm factor. It's not because people don't want to do it. It's that it takes time. It's expensive. It's overwhelming. I would say that 85%, I've probably taught 30,000, gosh, online, just online alone, I think there's more than 20,000 people that took the Intro to Localscapes class. Plus everyone I've taught in person for the last 13 years. So thousands of Utahns.
Yes.
And most everybody wants to make a change. They want to do stuff. It's just overwhelming and they have to do it a piece at a time. I'm no different. I mean, I'm finally doing the last 1,100 square feet of my own yard. And I taught this for years. It's just, it doesn't, I have to do it the same way everyone else does. Just bite off a chunk at a time. And that's the biggest tip that I would give people too, is just don't take on too much at once.
Yeah.
The way the incentive programs work, if you're going to participate in those, you qualify to just do a park strip or just do a side yard. Take it project by project, get the
Yeah.
outcome you want, and then move to the next thing. And so we will do that, even though we're doing a full front yard or a new construction backyard install. We will still show how to do that project by project because we just, my goal here with through Slow the Flow is to produce the most practical resources we can that address the real challenges and provide solutions that get people past those tripping points. The only thing I can't provide is money.
Yeah.
But there are incentive programs that come through water resources and the water districts that can help offset, the challenges there.
So tell me then, has there been a lot of response?
Oh my goodness. So we've coordinated with our cities. So the participating cities are Taylorsville, Mill Creek, Sandy, and Harriman. And the cities went ahead and put the opportunity out to their residents. And I have closed Mill Creek and Taylorsville. I had 117 applicants in Taylorsville and
Wow.
77 applicants in Mill Creek. So both of those are closed now, but the applications for Sandy and Harriman will be open through April 30th. And
Okay.
we're looking for in one of those cities, we're looking, so we'll do an existing front yard. We're also looking in one of our 4 cities, we need to do a new construction backyard. So that's kind of, it's either got to be a front yard or a new construction backyard to apply. And then it's just, we're just looking for, if you're an existing landscape, it's not necessarily make over the ugliest yard. I want to take a yard that's just very relatable to everybody, that's very basic and practical and simple and generic and turn it into something special. And again, it has to be qualified for the incentive programs because part of what we're showing is how to comply with the requirements and the rules of those programs. And so, for example, so it's got to have living lawn because that's part of the requirements for Utah Water Savers. So
Yep.
I'm sorry to those that are like, I desperately need a front yard put in. Get it. We do have some limitations, but yeah, the response has been great. The way to access those applications are on your city's Facebook page or your city's reach out to your city has it. But typically they've shared it on social. So your last city newsletter or your city's Facebook page is where you'll find the link to that. Or if you've got a city residents group, we've put links in there as well.
Okay, and the links will show that they're coming from,
It's a Google form. So it's just a form. You're going to go in and submit an application.
okay, from Utah Water Savers?
No, it's Slow Flow.
Okay, gotcha. So they'll look for a link that's related to Slow the Flow and what is the name of the particular campaign they should keep an eye out for?
So it will just say free WaterWise landscape makeover. It just says apply for a free WaterWise landscape makeover, and you'll see the Slow the Flow logo.
Perfect.
So one of the really exciting things is through a collaborative effort with Utah Division of Water Resources and Utah's water districts and the Utah State Legislature that funded a big percentage of this. The landscape incentive programs are more broadly available than they've ever been before. So the way it stands now is those that want to do like a smart controller upgrade, any homeowner in Utah can get $100 towards a smart controller. And, like my personal favorite smart controller is $125. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Even if it's so no matter where you live, no matter any Utah homeowner is qualified for that. We'll talk about where to apply in a second. And then it was 63%. It's going to be higher than that now. It's probably closer to 70% of the state's population live in a city that is participating in the landscape incentive programs, the Utah Water Savers landscape incentive programs. And so that's really exciting. You can get to those through slowtheflow.org. Any of these programs you can get to that way. That's the only address you're going to need to remember. We're going to funnel you out to all these different cool things. But that's where you could get in and make your application and see what you're eligible for. The dollar amount depends on the area of the state because there's different partners. So they'll stack those dollars if there's more people participating in those payouts. And that's why some are a little higher than others. But generally speaking, it's just a great way to offset the cost of your project. And for me, like I already have a lot of existing plants and trees, and I'm already on drip irrigation for all of that. So my project was really simple, and I'm just removing an area of lawn and replacing it with a fire pit with permeable, surfacing. If it were concrete, it wouldn't count for their incentive programs, but because it's a permeable surface, it does. And so, my project's going to cost me very little in that scenario because of what I need to do. And so I'm super excited to get my cash back because then I'm going to buy the fire pit with that. So,
Nice.
but yeah, that's, and again, I project by project. That's 1,100 square foot area that I'm doing right now on my almost 15,000 square foot lot. So you can, as long as it meets at least a minimum of 200, I believe it's 200 square feet, you can do small projects. And they really encourage you to do that because we don't want people getting overwhelmed and biting off more than they're ready to handle. So one of the ways that I tell people to kind of, with their thinking, how do I chunk this down to a smaller project? Do it by sprinkler zone. So if I would turn on an area, wherever I want to prioritize, right? And then I would see where my sprinkler head coverage is right there and use that to help you break it down into which parts of your project to do at a time so that you're working kind of zone by zone, and that'll make that easier. You might have to include two zones because maybe you have two zones of irrigation on lawn and you're going to switch an area out to plantings that'll have drip. So you'll need one of those zones for your drip and the other zone for the lawn. So anyway, there's all kinds of classes that get into that kind of detail. But the point is simply, this is a great year to do it. If you're in northern Utah, our Washington County people, just hold on for dear life down there. It's a
Yeah.
scary, scary water year down there, and it's really important to conserve.
Yes.
One of the challenges is that the best time to make landscape changes is a good water year because all the plants need additional water to get established. And so changing out in a drought, mostly in a drought, we just want you to conserve. But in a year like this is where we make progress so that when that drought year comes, which we all know is inevitable, we're prepared, we're ready, our landscapes are resilient, and they can handle it.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk about that for a full episode, just that alone.
We
Um,
absolutely will.
you talked about your specific project and the difference between concrete and a permeable surface.
Yeah.
What are the candidates for a permeable surface?
So I'm using kind of the flagstone chip or chat,
Yep.
decomposed granite. That's a material we'll demonstrate on the demonstration projects too, because it's a very homeowner friendly, budget friendly surface that properly installed can be ADA accessible. So it's not like gravel that's going to shift under your feet. It can be compacted and because of all the fines that are in it, it holds together really tightly. And it's something that regular people can do without totally destroying their budget. And you don't need a ton of skills to do it correctly. You just got to rent a plate compactor from, the big box store. We want to show people really cost effective ways to make these changes. And you don't have to spend huge dollars to get great outputs.
I'm so glad that you said ADA accessible, and here's why. With my specific project, I've got, so many different pathways that I'm doing in my yard
Hmm.
to break up certain areas. And originally the plan before all of, was, oh, well, we'll just do like little sidewalk situations and whatever. And that, of course, has changed completely to we did road base and then gravel. And now we haven't put the chat in yet, but we are going to be soon. We just finished compacting in the road base.
Nice. Well, and
And
that's a good thing too to save a little bit of money because you can put road base down for the first 2 inches of your gravel material and compact it down, and then put the more expensive pretty rock on top of it, so that
yes.
you're buying 2 inches of pretty rock rather than 4 inches, and you can cut that cost down substantially by doing that. It's a good little side trick.
Okay, yeah, well, good. I'm glad we did it right then, because that's what we're doing. And
No, you're supposed to say I meant to do it that way. That was totally by design.
well, it kind of was, but yeah. So now we're going to be getting the chat as soon as we're done with one little project in the back, which is the chicken coop shed situation. But one of the reasons why I wanted the path situation was for my best friend's daughter who is in a wheelchair. And I
Hmm.
have been stressed out that maybe the chat won't work with the wheelchair wheels. But
Yeah.
if you think it is, then I mean,
It will. It's just in how you lay it. So you're going to want to do a thin layer and compact and water it down. So thin layer, like 1/2 inch, water it, run the compactor over it. The next 1/2 inch, water it,
yeah.
spray it down, mist it down so that anyway, so that will help tighten it up. There's also, and I have never used it, so I cannot vouch for it, but there is a binder material that you can get. I know Staker Parsons Landscape Center has it. There's a binder material that you can get that helps solidify that a little bit more. So since you're doing so much path work, maybe in like a back corner, try the binder out and see if
I'm
you
so
like
glad you
it.
said that. Yeah, because I know that.
Or if you got a slope in that area where you've got a little bit of slope, maybe you use the binder just in that area and don't worry about it elsewhere.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's such a good point because when I got my initial delivery of the road base, I got it from Biograss, and the delivery man looked around. And he goes, "Is this the size of your project?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, what do you put on top of the road base?" I said, "Well, these are going to be chat pathways." And he said, "That's going to be great, but what about dogs?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Well, it can get kind of stuck in the dog's paws, and then if they run inside, you can be making a mess." And he's like, "Just make sure to compact it really good and maybe
Hmm.
get the binder." And I didn't want to be like, "Well, what do you mean by the binder?" Because I was kind of in a hurry to get back
Yeah.
inside to a meeting. So anyway, I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
mentioned
Compact it really well and yeah, try it with the binder. Well, like I said, I haven't done the binder, so I can't personally vouch for it. That's why I would tell anyone to try a test piece, you know.
Yeah.
So same thing we talked about with plants. Like if you're not sure about something, just buy one.
Yeah.
You know, don't go buy a whole bunch of something. Buy one, test it out. Or if, like in an area, like we talked about your rock wall, what am I going to fill the rock wall with? You're going to get a 4 pack of a bunch of different ground covers, and you're going to let them battle it out, and you're
Yeah.
going to see which one emerges victorious.
It's so true. Oh my gosh, yes. I will try the binder and I will let you know how it works. I know the exact perfect spot to do it, so I'll be the guinea pig and I'll keep you informed. We
Excellent.
we ended up buying a compactor because the project's so big.
Oh, good. I'll be needing to borrow that
So
if
you're
I'm going
more
to
than
hit
welcome to borrow it.
my deadline.
Yeah, no, you can borrow. I'm serious because we did buy it just because we just knew we needed to just have it handy all summer so we could do it
Yeah.
when we got the deliveries instead of, oh, we got to rent. So
Yeah.
got it. I'm your hookup.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
We'll
for
work
sure.
for plant. I'll trade you plants.
Oh
We'll
yeah.
do what we'll do what garden people do, you
That's
know.
right.
Actually, that's been so much fun. I have different garden tools that I've lent, you know, that are like obscure tools that you
Yeah.
only need when you need it. And it's been so fun to like lend that out to different people because I'm like, you don't need to go buy this $150 trenching spade. I've got it. Come borrow it, you know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
love that about
totally.
gardeners. Like they're so generous, right? Everybody always shares with each other and giving away excess plants and all of the good things. So
I
it's
know.
just a great community to be involved with.
I know. Garden people are literally the best people. I'm serious. Question about the landscape demonstration projects.
Yeah.
So when people apply, how long are they going to be working on that and when would they hear back? In at least as far
Yeah.
as Sandy and Harriman.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get back with our Mill Creek and Taylorsville people. I'm so close to getting it narrowed down. So that within the next week or two.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
since the 30th is the deadline, probably by end of May for sure on Sandy and Harriman. The landscapes are going to be installed by Scenic View and Utah Wildflower Company.
Leroy at
And
Scenic View. I
I
love
know we
that.
have great people. We have great people. Like these landscapes are the example of how the job should get done. So I needed to hire companies that I know how to do the job correctly. And because they're going to be teaching everyone else how to do it correctly.
Yes.
And Leroy's a great person to learn from, right?
Yes.
And then the designs. So I, you know, obviously I design, but my skills are dated. I've spent my time teaching. I don't draw beautiful plans like I used to. I design better than ever, but I can't put it on paper the way I did back when I did that frequently. But you know who can do it incredibly is Kristen Hansen with Our Nesting Space, and she is designing all the yards.
No.
Yeah, seriously, I would have her design my yard in a heartbeat. So we have lots of great designers. These are just the ones that we're working with this year. We hope to make this an annual thing that we get to do this in more parts of the state. So we need everyone to watch the videos and like help it grow. We'll
Yes.
have like the short how-to videos this year, but the really fun one isn't going to come out till next year. Okay, so work with me on this. Imagine there was a good landscape makeover show. And the
Yes.
reason there isn't a good one is because TV cannot work on the timelines that are required to make a good show. You know, they go in, they do everything in a weekend, they throw in a bunch of stuff. The end result is someone's like, it looks cool, I like it. There's really nothing more than that, right? And they walk away and things are still a little discombobulated. For us, we'll have that immediate after moment, but we're going to actually go in next summer when all the perennials and grasses have filled in and the yard looks nice and the homeowners have lived with it for a year. And that's when we'll shoot the after. So the long form videos won't come out till next year because we think it's more important to end on a video where people are telling you how it's changed how they live versus it looks cool, I like it. So the
Totally.
goal here is just to really drive that demand, help us create the vision of what Utah could look like once
Yeah.
we stop trying to, you know, think we're everybody else. Like
Kristen,
special. We look
Kristen is
the most.
such a good designer. Like I've seen some of her stuff recently and it's so well thought out.
Yeah. And yeah, and so that's it. And she presents it in a way that it's very easy for people to imagine, and that takes an incredible skill set.
Yeah.
And so, I used to end every class I taught with the smartest part of doing it yourself is knowing when you shouldn't. So, even though could I design a nice yard? Sure, but guess what? I'm not Kristen. So we're gonna bring the best to the table for this project, and lots of great designers and contractors in Utah. And we really hope that this series can kind of catch on and be an annual thing, and that we can spread it around to different parts of the state and see what the ideal landscape looks like all over Utah, and with all different kinds of properties and with lots of different people helping. So
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because I think this is something that we can regularly update our listeners on, as far as the progress and when each home is done, and make sure to shout out and show, like, here's where you go to see how they did
yeah.
this. And I love it. I think it's
And
really,
there'll be lots of there'll be activities that go on around it too. So follow Slow the Flow on social media if you're not already. We're just gearing up for the season, but if you follow us there, that's where you'll see where all the different things are. But we're talking about a live stream with the contractor where people can call in and ask a contractor questions, and he's standing in a landscape where he can go and explain it to you.
yes.
We're looking at an after tour. We will do an after tour this year. Um, of each of those landscapes, we'll get an after tour. I don't know if we'll schedule them separately or together. All of that's still in the works, but we do want to make sure that there is a way to see those yards. And yeah, and so it'll just be an interesting time for people to kind of learn and grow, and definitely follow along, because even those that submitted that we can't award, they still are qualified to get those incentives. And we'll be doing all kinds of special bonus content where we give some ideas away or different things like that that help people solve the real problems and really tackle those challenges. And that's really the direction. The theme for the Slow the Flow campaign this year is designed for Utah. And so we really want to lay out, what does that mean? What does that look like? How are people achieving this? And we really want to show the good work that everyone out there is doing that is literally transforming the visual fabric of our entire state.
A mic drop. Serious mic drop.
Well, yeah, I always say we can teach people how to get it. I can't make them want it. What makes them want it is when they see the success of other people.
Totally.
When we have a beautifully flipped park strip in somebody's neighborhood, all their neighbors end up flipping their park strip. If it just goes to gravel, it doesn't have any impact.
That's right.
Other than it starts getting weedy and ugly, and then people get mad about it.
Yep.
But when it flips to a pretty water-wise design, what we see is these neighborhoods start transforming. And then once I've done the park strip, I learn how to manage that and how to do it differently. And when I'm ready, now I can do a side yard, or maybe I can shrink my lawn, or, people will naturally start moving that direction once they feel confident that they know what they're doing. And so that's another reason we encourage people to take on a small project to start, because that gives you that skills upgrade that you need to feel ready to do more. We just don't want people to be overwhelmed, and a little bit of progress is better than none. And so that's what we would love to see people do.
Cynthia, I know I said this the last time you were on the show at the very end, but gosh darn it, the state of Utah is lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I am just so privileged to be able to serve people, and to just, the greatest part of my job is I get to give away the best of what I know for free.
Jeez.
Like, I'm paid to give it away for free. And so I don't have to worry about making a living at it. I mean, I am making a living at it, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about billing clients and all of that. I can just get to just share the best of what I know and share the best of what other people are doing. And it just, it's so great.
Well,
I love it.
It's inspiring, and it's thoughtful, and it's water wise, and it makes sense. And I love it. I love all of it. So I really appreciate you being on the show. So if people have questions, should they go to Slow the Flow Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah. You can even email info@slowtheflow.org. But however, whatever your preferred method is, we will find you and see you and respond.
Incredible. Well, listeners, we will keep you updated on all the happenings here with the landscape design projects. And don't forget to also check out the Utah Plant Selector at slowtheflow.org. And again, Cynthia, thanks for being here. And we're going to see you at the Dahlia sale.
Yeah. The plant nerd out.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Gardening Utah. A huge thank you to Cynthia B for joining me. I always have so much fun talking plants with her, and I hope you found as much inspiration as I did. And if you want even more of Cynthia's wisdom, You can go back to episodes 68 and episodes 43 of Gardening Utah, where she shares even more amazing tips on landscaping and water-wise gardening. It's like getting a free Localscapes class because she really deep dives into really what to do. So if you are planning a landscape or know someone who is, this episode and 68 and 43 of Gardening Utah are absolute gems and must listens. So if you enjoyed this episode, please take a quick second to leave us a rating and review either on Spotify or Apple Podcast. It really helps more garden lovers like you find the show. And don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram at Gardening Utah. And if you know a friend or neighbor who is dreaming of a beautiful, sustainable yard and they've got a lot of work to do, just go to the bottom of this episode as you're listening to it now and hit the share button and send them a link over text to listen to this show. I'm sure they'll thank you for it, and let's keep spreading the plant love. Thanks again for listening to Gardening Utah, and as I always say, grow big or go home.